Okay, so I wanted to look at these a little bit because, again, if you understand how these work, they're not too bad. You can treat them as algebra problems, y equals mx plus b type situations, but you can, if you think of them from a business perspective, I think that helps as well. So again, if you think of all expenses, make this little graph. Part of them are just fixed. It's just a flat out dollar amount. Right? It's just fixed expenses. They're one-time expenses. You pay them. Once you pay them, you own them, and you don't have to pay them again. And then you have the marginal cost, which are ongoing expenses, and it's the cost to produce one, times basically X is the number of items you're going to produce. And together, if you add these two pieces up, this whole chart would be your total expenses. Okay, so that's your expenses. So if you think of this chart, you can use it to help, or we could do algebra. So we'll kind of do it both ways. So I'm going to draw my little chart. And let's see, on this one it says fixed cost of 100,000. All right, so maybe they buy a factory, maybe a small business, they put some equipment in it, but these are things you only pay for once. So maybe you buy the building, you buy the equipment, and then you own it. So those are your fixed costs. And then 100 items cost this. Now, again, fixed cost, this is your total expenses. So that $100,225, that's all of that. All right, and part of it is your fixed cost. The rest of it is this part. So marginal cost times X, and we don't know our marginal cost, but we do know X. X is the number of items that we buy, okay? So this is how many we buy. So, and you could put maybe number of items here, if you want to. All right, so I don't know the marginal cost. I'll call it M, but I do know the number of items is 100. Okay, so I know this times this plus that has to add up to that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to subtract these because I know that 100,000 is built in here. And so I know that this part is the 100,000 part. Just rewrite it. But I know the rest of that is the 225 is that part. So there's two parts to expenses. And so now I know that this part is just equal to that. So 100M equals 225. There's no adding, so I'm just going to divide. So M is 2.25. So what that means is I know that it costs $2.25 to produce each item. Okay. So that might be wood, it might be glue, it might be nails, it might be plastic, it might be cloth, whatever it's made of, and those ongoing expenses. So that's one way to get it. If I want to do algebra here, then I have to understand that fixed costs are my B, and that this is an ordered pair. Okay, so there's my B, or my y-intercept, and there. And again, remember when you write a linear equation, your first step is to get M, but there's really no way to get M with kind of what I'm giving here. Well, I should take that back. If I view this as an ordered pair, I could get it by doing change in y over that. So I guess I could get it that way. But I was thinking of maybe just subbing in 3 out of 4. Because I already know B, I know input, output, so I'm just going to solve for it. All right, so my B is $100,000. My, let's see, input is 100. My rate I don't know, but my output I do know. And so then the algebra just tells you to subtract the 100,000. But again, logic tells you that from a business perspective. So 225, and do you see how the algebra ends up getting you in the same place? M equals 2.25. So again, common sense, think of it this way from a business. This is more your algebra. Now, in either case, it's going to say write what we would call a cost function. So we usually write a function like that. Instead of y equals, we put C. So we know it's a cost function. We usually use R for revenue, P for profit. So this way we know when we see the C, like, oh, this is a cost function. All right, so my rate, remember slope is always a rate, so 225. And then X plus, what was my fixed cost? Right there. So again, remember when you're dealing with finite, everything is around money, right? And so our rate, our marginal cost always goes right there, and then our fixed cost goes right there. All right, let's look at the next example. So I can give you different pieces of this. I could also tell you that you're going to sell the item for, say, $7, and then I could ask you to find the revenue function and maybe profit function. So we could do things with that, and we'll do more later as things progress. All right, let's just think about it. So I'm going to make my little chart. All right, so I know that I have my marginal cost times X, which is my number of items, right? Which makes sense. If you have 100 items that cost $5 each, that'd be $500. So this is your marginal cost. And then you have your fixed cost. And together, all of this is your total expenses, okay? So I'm just going to fill in this chart and let it help me figure out what's going on here. So do I know my fixed cost? I don't. I don't see anything that says fixed cost here. I do know that I have 50 items that cost $10 each. So I know the number of items and I know what they cost. So I actually this time know this part of the chart. I have to multiply to get it. But I do know that I have $500 in the marginal cost part. So this is the marginal cost part figured out. Now my fixed cost, I don't really know. But notice this time I do know my total expenses are $7,500. So if I subtract these, so subtract the 500, then it looks like that I know my fixed costs have to be $7,000. All right, and so I can write my equation, and again, I'm going to use a function notation, cost of X, and it is what? What's my marginal cost? Oh, there it is. Marginal cost is $10 per item, so times X, and then you have what? Plus 7,000, and there you go. Okay. Now, if you really, really, really love algebra and you're like, I spent all those years learning algebra. Why did I learn algebra? Well, it's helpful. Marginal cost is your slope because remember that's a rate. So that's your slope. And then that other thing, the 50 items, $7,500 is a point. Okay. So you actually know your slope and you actually know a point. So again, usually we get slope first, but it's given to you. But the next step is to always sub in 3 out of 4 into this equation. Now, last time, notice when we subbed in 3 out of 4, we knew B, we knew X, and we knew Y. We didn't know M. So we were solving for slope that time. This time, what do I know? Well, I know my slope, I know my input, I know my output. So this time I can solve for B. So in algebra, if something's linear, it has a constant change, and you know 3 out of the 4 parts, you can always get the other one. So M is 10, this is 50, this is 7,500, there's my B. Subtract 500, 7,000 equals your B. And so you can write your cost function. So your rate was what, 10x, and what's your fixed cost? 7,000. So again, what this is telling you is that this person spent $7,000 on one-time expenses. Maybe equipment, maybe they're going to have a screen printing business and they bought a bunch of like things that are only one-time expenses. So like a bunch of screen printing devices, okay, for bags, for t-shirts, for whatever you can think of, hats. So they've spent $7,000 on equipment. This is your ongoing expense. So the t-shirts, the little logos that you're going to iron on, anything that's an ongoing expense is your marginal cost. This is fixed. It's a one-time deal. All right. I hope that helps. Up to you. I won't force you to do algebra. If you like the chart better, if it makes more sense to you, that's great. So I will see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.